hopefully allow us to document some of it. It is Esther's hope that this can become part of the oral history documentation here at the university. So with that, I'd like to introduce Esther. It's been a true pleasure for me to work with her. I hope that our relationship continues, and if there's anything that the association can do to help perpetuate this and move it in the direction that you wish, don't hesitate to call upon us. So, Esther?
Thank you very much, Susie. Susie is such a remarkable person. There is nothing that we could have asked for that she hasn't already anticipated. And so it's been our pleasure, and we do thank you so much.
It's been fun.
It started out, for those of you who may not have heard, Ruth Armstrong Smith and I are members of the Nevada Women's History Group. And we were there one day at the offices, and we were looking at each other and wondering, where do I know her from? You've been here for a while, you think, where did we go to church at some time together, or what happened, you know, or at the grocery store? We decided, yes, we went to school together at the same time. We were in the war together. So we said, in the course of conversation, wouldn't it be fun to see some of the old gang again, some of the people we knew during those years? And so she co-hosted with me for our first meeting, which was on January 17th, and it was over at the YWCA, and about 26 of us met. And we did a videotape, and we gave copies of it to Nevada Women's History Group, to the archives at the university here, the Getchell Library, and also to the Oral History Group. And you know what? They really looked at it. They really did. And so it is of great interest to people of this generation and the coming generations. What we did during the war and what has happened since as a result of our education and our work experience. And it certainly did change things for all of us. I would like to thank Ruth for all of the things that she did in helping. Rose Nanini, Rennie Glenn, Muriel Gamble, Betty Waltonspiel, Marilyn Perkins, and who else? See, they told me not to do this because I probably hurt somebody's feelings. Mary Lou, you know, all the people that helped on the planning here, very important. And so anyone else that would like to join in on this, if we continue to do it, please let me know. Now, I want to give special thanks to the Alumni Association, of course, and to the Nevada Women's History Group, or project, I should say, and who are going to be really utilizing the information they get through this. See, we're having a good time seeing each other again. It seems to me today it has brought things in sort of a full circle for me. It's a very deep and very rewarding experience in that respect. But also it has a deeper meaning for keeping the torch alive for those who went before and those who will go after us in learning. And the Getchell Library Archives, of course, have been very cooperative in helping us do the research here. For instance, I went into the archives. They helped me find these articles that many of you have looked at. And there's even an article written by Barbara Mills. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. From Fallon. And somebody just pointed that out. And I also found where it says women president legalized at Senate meet. Up until 1943, they couldn't elect a woman president of ASUN. Did you know that? I didn't. So this
43. Wasn't Helen Madison before that?
No.
And after 43.
It was in September of 1943. The Senate changed Then Helen Batcher became our first woman president. And so the war did make a difference for a lot of us. I keep saying it was a pivotal time for us. And right now I'd like to have you all look at your little folder here that you were all given. This is our logo, our University of Nevada World War II Women's Coed logo. Doesn't belong to anybody else. It was designed specifically for us.
By your daughter.
And I'm telling you this by my daughter, who is a professional graphics artist. And she said, Mom, I am doing this out of respect for all of those women. Please tell them from me how much I appreciate them. And she's very much into women's studies. And she said that they studied the clothes that we wore then, what it was like for us to go to work during the war and after the war, the barriers that we had to break down to make it easier for them to have the professions they have today so easily. And on the back, maybe you'll read along with me, it's a welcome. It says, today we meet to renew old acquaintances, to rekindle old friendships, to bring to mind the times when we were girls who lived, studied, and met the challenge of helping our beloved country during the worst war in history. Please open your hearts and minds and share your history so that we can better remember and our posterity can hear our unsung song. Now my daughter and I had quite a tussle over those last two words. She said, there's no such thing as an unsung song. But I said, yes, there is. So we left it like that. On the inside, you'll find places for people to write down their names and addresses and phone numbers, those that you would like to keep in touch with. And I hope that you all will do that. There are a lot of people who I'm sure we're carrying in our hearts that we'd love to have be here. But they have preceded us in death. And there are others who are in poor health who would like to be here, but they can't. And so just for a second, let's just think about them and just feel really lucky that they were in our lives. Now I'd like to have some ideas after this. If you think you'd like to have another tea next year, I'm sure they'll help us. We said we'd call it a tea. It's a tea with no tea. Maybe there's some tea over there, but anyway, remember when we used to go to the teas with our gloves and our hats? And I was telling Gloria, what came to mind immediately, they said, let's make it a tea. I was thinking of her mother with her great big hats that she always wore, and she would pour with the silver teapot, and it was just so impressive, you know. So I thought maybe we could borrow the Mackie silver, but they wouldn't let us. So now I'd like to find out, I know we have one lady from Florida. Did anyone? Barbara? Yeah, she came from Florida.
Yes.
I think you came the farthest. Who came from outside of Reno, Sparks area? Dorothy? Would
She
you
flew
tell
her
me?
own plane.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you tell us about that? Tell us.
Well, that's a long story.
Look in the camera.
Look in the camera and tell us.
Been flying since 1972. I have my own plane. My three daughters all have their licenses, but they're not active anymore. And the last two times I've come up here, I've had radio problems. I I just spent $1,600 to have one radio modified. It's not working correctly yet. Can't get into the Reno airport unless you have radio contact and encoding altimeter. I was getting a little bit nervous yesterday. I finally made the second radio work, and that's not the one that I just spent $1,600 on. But I made it. We're family.
Well, we are so proud of you.
Where do you live?
San Bernardino, Southern California.
In quite a ways. I think that's wonderful. Thank you. Let's see. Katie Little, where are you? She's here. Would you like to tell us about you? She's from California.
First of all, I want to thank you for making me a poster girl.
Yes.
First time in my life I could think of.
The Southern Oregon coast, we live at North Bend, which is right next to Coos Bay, which is a little bigger place and better known. We moved to Bandon, Oregon 25 years ago, and then we moved from Bandon up to the Coos Bay area 10 years later. So we don't get down here very often because even though my husband and I are both, well, I'm retired and he's semi-retired, we're just, as everyone knows, busier than ever when you retire. And I'm involved a lot in things that are demanding responsibility. And one thing that I remember about our days, and we refer to it lots of times today, is whether it was because we were mostly women on the campus during the war or what, we really, I think, were very, very responsible. And someone said, yes, if you wanted to be sure, if you were the chairman of the committee, and you wanted to be sure the job would be done, you gave it to a woman. And if you had a man as chairman of something you delegated, you had to keep checking on him to make sure it had been done. I also remember one of the things, my twin brother was killed in World War II in Germany in the Battle of the Bulge. And the day it happened, I was at school. And the president called me to his office, and I thought it was so dear that he called me there so I could get the message in a protected situation. And that was, I thought, something very rare that most people wouldn't have bothered. But you know, that's one thing about World War II, I think, is that it was a different kind of war than Korea or Vietnam, because we were all for it, and it was whatever we could do to make it work and win. And it was a just different feeling. And I was telling someone else today that when I went to, did some graduate work afterwards, there was really a different feeling on a campus that was normal as compared to the campus that we had when we were here during the war. And I noticed particularly, not so much, strangely enough, not so much an intensity in our lives, because we appeared to enjoy it. The bean feeder, I remember those crazy bean feeds, and I remember the times that we laughed a lot despite the problems, despite the horror of it all and the tension of it all. And when you went out with a serviceman, it wasn't all depressing because you might never see him again. It was just, let's have fun and let's enjoy and be glad that we're here and that we are going to win. It was a whole different, you know, and unless you went to a school during normal times, you really perhaps wouldn't have realized that that was the feeling here on the campus.
Well, that's how we coped with it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was how we coped with it. Thank you. And all right, people just speak up. If you're from out of town, please. Pat?
Yes, I'm from out of town. I'm from Prescott, Arizona now. Say my name, Pat Riley. Oh, Ellen B. Riley. I did a tour of duty in California, Sebastopol, which is in the Sonoma County wine country, and then I was in the Bay Area for a while, and like everything else, those towns just grew and blossomed until there were too many people, too many cars, too many gimmicks, too much everything. So I read a little book, and the fellow said, if you want to retire, look at Prescott, Arizona. Well, I bought some land down there, and I built a house, and the next month, Money Magazine came out and said, Prescott, Arizona was one of the 10 best places to live than everybody else. And Arizona has about 4 million people. Fortunately, 2 million of them stay in Phoenix.
Do you have some real estate for sale?
Yeah, right. I have retired my real estate license, but I know a good deal for you. And if you ever get around to talking about some of the history of the war, I'm sure that a lot of you remember my car more than me. In fact, it was known as the Screeching Six. It was a 1927 Hudson Super 6 that my dad had sort of kept. Among other vehicles, it was something I think it was too sentimental to part with. And he graduated here in 1916. I hope I'm not running over my time, but we used to take the Screeching Six to school. We got it started in the winter by getting into it and coasting down almost to 4th Street before it would warm up. Then we'd come back up on campus. This was to save us from walking 4 blocks. When we took it skiing, it had a vacuum draw on it. Now, see, I worked for Standard Stations Incorporated during the war, and Virginia Ockenpaw and I knew all about, changing oil and this kind of stuff. So we would put somebody out on the fender of the car, fold the hood up, and they would pour gas siphoned from the rear end directly into the carburetor. It's a wonder we didn't all blow out. But Phyllis Green, bless her, she's just left us recently, I understand, got a good swig of gasoline one time. Her job is to pour it directly into the carburetor, but she was siphoning the gas, got a good swallow of gas, and she was afraid to smoke for 2 weeks. Probably because it was in the car she had.
Gloria, are you from out of town? You're here now. Okay.
Gloria ought to tell, though, about the USO shows we used to do.
Yeah, well, let's find out where people are from first, and then we'll do that. Yeah, that's great.
Well, I live in Walnut, California. Now, if any of you are Olympic fans, especially field and track, many of our stars got started at Mount San Antonio College, Mount Sac, and that's the home in Walnut. And the one that I remember, the pole vaulter, I can't think of his name, I'm sorry, but that's where Walnut is. It's near Diamond Bar, it's near West Covina, La Puente, Pomona. But Walnut is famous for the Olympic team's track and field at Mount Sac.
We're glad that you came. You drove up just for this?
I flew up. It didn't work the flight, just flew.
We have some people from Fallon, isn't it? Nice and fun.
I guess one of my memories of university when I went to school here was living in the Lambda Chi house.
Yes.
Because the cadets took the dormitories over, and so we lived in the Lambda Chi house, and it was quite funny sometimes to pick up the telephone, and on the other end, they were expecting a male voice, and they got a female voice, and it kind of threw whoever was calling. But anyhow, it was a nice community campus at that time.
Yes, it was. And I know some of us were at the ATO house. We even had a song, and I've got it up here in this scrapbook.
Oh.
We're the girls of the ATO.
Well, we had to come over and eat at the ATO house.
Yes, right. Oh, is that right? Yeah. Okay, who else is from out of town?
Her sister.
How about her sister?
Her sister.
There, yeah.
I'm Merle
I thought you were
Nygaard.
speaking for both.
We don't do that. My fond memories are of the Lambda Chi house too, and having to traipse over to the ATO house to eat our meals. And one of my fondest memories of the ATO house was our first university female president, Helen Thatcher. She was full of fun and was a wonderful person to know, and I'll never forget her. And we have Muriel over there, Gamble from Carson City, who also was a housemaid at the Lambda Chi House. It was a wonderful time. One of the things I can remember, and a lot of you gals would too, was when the troops, meaning the cadets, went traipsing across the bridge at Manzanita Lake. They had to break stride, otherwise they'd shake the bridge to the point it would have collapsed. And that's something I'll never forget. It's when they'd get there, they'd break their stride and walk across the bridge, and then they'd get right back into marching step again.
That's interesting, I never knew that.
Have you noticed something that keeps coming up is what good friends all of us were from all being together on the campus during those times?
Comes to me.
Well, okay, has everyone from out of town spoken?
No.
Why don't we? Ellen. Oh, yes.
Tell us.
Well, we came down from Sandpoint, Idaho, which is famous for living near Mark Furman. who was the name I just mentioned Mark Furman. You'll read about Sandpoint a lot if you read Murder in Brentwood, because he decided to retire there. And he lived about 2.5 months from us. But as far as World War II goes, I was busy with about 2 or 3 jobs during my time in college. And so I would serve people at the dining hall. I would make Western shirts for the Westerner, which Reno was a regular city, a little small city with things like stationery stores and and drugstores and learners and Ray Read and Write was in Reno. The thing I remember.
And then you had another job. You had 3 jobs, didn't you?
Then I worked for Coach Aiken also, and Jake Lawler, before they became buildings names. and I helped recruit. My job was to write letters to the prospective people who would man the football fields and basketball and so on. So Coach Aiken subscribed to the newspapers in the steel mining areas of the East Coast. Let's see, we did Pennsylvania, New Jersey, right? And so we were recruiting people for the football field. But my one thing that happened that the B5s were all over, and of course I didn't get to live in the Lambda Chi or the ATL house, but they were there, and I was waiting tables in the dining hall, so I would meet some of the people who came in town, and I dated one or 2 dates, I guess. He seemed like a nice person, and no, he definitely was not married or anything like that, until Adele Marsh, who was the Dean of Women, called me to her office, and she said, "Do you know you're dating a married man?" I said, "Oh, I am not." He said he wasn't married. And she said, "Well, he's here, his wife has arrived on campus." So I was terribly embarrassed. And she made a law right then and there that all married men from any of the services who were living here on the campus had to be registered married men. And then we would know.
It was posted on the bulletin board.
Yes.
Dormitories, if I remember correctly.
You bet. And I was helpful in getting that embarrassing thing. Yeah, I was terribly embarrassed. Not a good thing.
Okay, is that everyone from out of town now? So just because you live in Reno or Sparks or Carson City doesn't mean you're not important. So let's say, if someone has a memory, let's put it that way, if someone has a memory they'd like to share about the years that they went to school, why don't you just speak up and we'll just incorporate it into the tape and be sure you tell us your name. And,
Esther,
yes,
they're better if they're not too long. We found
Right.
in our other tape.
right.
And we also, we're talking about, we need to know the kind of work you did too. You know, like my pickle factory experience and that kind of thing, that we should record these stories. And their name.
Gabby worked in the munitions in Hawthorne.
She should hurl off. Hurl off.
Virginia Olson.
Tell us about it. Come on, Gabby.
Here, I'm going to stand by you.
The summer of '43, I worked in the box factory and made box crates for munitions, and we had this huge steel table, and the nails were maybe a quarter of an inch longer than the boxes that we were trying to go through, and we had him right and crimped back. And the first weekend I came home, my dad said to me, "You're supposed to hit the metal nail, not yourself."
Well, tell them about the next summer.
Then the next summer, Darden Tibbs, she graduated in '44, and she was at Gamma Phi Beta, and she and we found out after the summer that we had one of the most dangerous jobs because here we were, they had this long cement platform, and then there was a barricade of sand boxes. There were 4 deep, wooden boxes full of sand, floor to ceiling, and we had to go, and then behind us was the jackrabbit, where the jackrabbits and sagebrush. And we had to walk her from the barricade around and pick off of a trolley, a dolly bomb. They were 25-pound bombs. And we'd pick them up and bring back and put them in a winch and take the fuse off. And we had to put a new fuse in. And the thing was, they designed these, they were better for transporting the fuses on the bombs. They were safer for transportation, but they were better when you detonated. So that's why we were changing the bombs. And then we got through with that. There were 6 bombs to a cluster, and they were called a cluster bomb. And then they were wired on a rack eventually, and then they were packed. And then we changed over to hand grenades, and that was quite a thing. We had tarp down, canvas tarp on the cement, and our shoes, we had to have tape on our shoes, covered any nails that are in your shoes, because, your heels and things. And we couldn't chew gum, we couldn't drink anything, we couldn't have anything around our mouths and our faces with that. And you could unscrew the hand grenades, the fuse would come right out, and these in particular ones, it looked just like cornmeal inside, the ammunition. And then we changed those, and that was that.
And tell them they told you you had to wash.
It says, out of this, we also served, a lot of it's pretty dangerous work. I know for about 9 months I worked in a butadiene plant in Texas, in Beaumont, Texas. And they have these big cracking towers, and then they produced butadiene, and they made an artificial rubber out of it. It was part of the process that we would analyze in these calibrated machines. But the gas came in a compressed, it looked like a bomb. And then you'd unscrew it, and then you would run a sample of the gas through this machine. And there was to be no smoking anywhere. It was so highly volatile in the whole plant. And of course, it went, 24 hours. And one of the workers on the shift just ahead of me one time was badly burned because a little bit escaped, and the gas started coming out of the bomb, and it just went around and around, spraying fire. Pardon me. So with that, I'm going to turn it loose and people can just volunteer. As you go out, I'm going to leave this on the table, and if anyone is willing to fill out a questionnaire about your school years and the work you did and how you think it changed your life, please sign it and I'll send you a questionnaire. Thank you very much. And so we'll just visit now.
Esther, I don't think Adrian is quite finished.
Oh, all right. I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
Yeah, I'm finished. You shut me up.
I'm sorry, Gabby.
She wanted to tell you that they had to be sure and bathe because all of that cornmeal was all over them.
Yeah,
They could explode
Cornmeal.
with the cornmeal.
It wasn't cornmeal, in other words.
Oh, it looked like cornmeal.
Yeah, but I mean,
The munitions,
the
yeah.
cornmeal,
Yeah.
munitions.
Quite literally go out with a bang. I remember you went in for your physical. And everybody was so impressed, we thought you were going to go and be a
But I did. Instead, Jerry went down to DeWitt Hospital and the psychiatric hospital, where I went and Lois Bradshaw. And we all worked there after the end of 44. Well, our friend Mary Rita was off with her husband in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Were you working with any of the servicemen? So, were you working with any servicemen, Katie?
It was all named to the psychiatric hospital.
That's interesting.
And that's what really put both Jerry and I into the business of doing mental health work for the rest of our natural lives, sort of.
And did you come up with this? I worked out turn on too, and I started out with the box factory, but I got such hay fever, so I was transferred over to the Italian prisoners of war, and they unloaded the carloads of lumber for the box factory. And I had all their names listed there, and I checked, and I did this all day long, that everybody was working and did their amount of, carried off their number of boxes, and I was the only one out there with all of them, and of course the Italian prisoners of war were treated different than the others. They had passes to town, and you'd see them down in Reno. They'd bring a carload of them in, and then
They came to our house for dinner.
and then they'd pick them up at night again and bring them back on the weekends. So quite a few of us worked out there. It was very interesting.
We lived in a dorm in a big barrel.
In there, at Herlong, Virginia Olson and Sylvia Garrity and Virginia Cole were there, Mary Ancho. Were you?
I went up 43.
Yeah.
Went to the box factory too, but I lasted only the weekend, and they transferred us to another girl in the payroll.
Too much dust.
Sore hands, I couldn't pick up the hammer after the second day.
Shakespearean actor. Don't know if you all remember him, but he came up to do a workshop here. And I went around the neighborhood begging one gas stamp from everybody to go so I could put it in my dad's old car and drive to Wadsworth. And I remember we were late, and so we were just going so fast, and I knew that the faster you go, the more gas you use, and I was afraid I wasn't going to have enough to make it back at all, much less make it back on time. And I remember literally promising anything. I'll get it back from my dad, and I'll give you the gas stamp back, you know, because I needed it for this particular thing. I promised to bring him up here for one of our Shakespearean, one of our literature classes.
Was that Gareth Hughes?
Yeah, Gareth Hughes, right, and he had that little, he was serving the Indian community, and I remember driving like a maniac.
He married you, back?
He married you? Oh, I didn't know that, no.
Did he make it back?
We made it back, and he was, yes, and he was marvelous. And he let me be Portia, and he read Shylock, it was wonderful. He baptized my kids.
Now, where was he?
We sat in class and knitted. We knitted for the Army and the Navy and for refuges. Brown was for the refuges. I don't know what refuges these were, but, and then the blue and the green.
And the green.
Green.
Where's your flower post? I don't remember that. It just was all kind of a blur. You know? I remember the cadets on campus, of course, really changed our lives because we couldn't go certain places because the cadets were there. And during class time, you had to wait till they passed. But I wish someone who remembered the cadence they used to sing. Adrian, can you remember the things the cadets would say? What would they say?
They would sing on the left. The girls to the right are a bit all right, parley-boo. The girls to the right are a bit all right, parley-boo. The girls to the right are a bit all right. How about a date tonight? Hinky-dinky, parley-boo. Then they'd stop and they'd say, eyes right. And carry on. And then the guys go on marching. Cadence.
Yeah.
What do you remember? That's really familiar.
Well, I taught before the the only thing I can remember is that part-time jobs were awfully easy to come by. Everyone worked. Maybe not in the essential jobs that Jean Adrian had, but we all worked, it seems to me, in something. And then we were recruited in a way the sororities would send the freshmen to dances and so forth because they had to have a certain number, or else the USO dances or out to Tonopah. And
For Fallon?
Fallon, and I remember one night one of the taxi companies had some sort of program where they were hosting some officers or something, and then the sororities provided the dates for the evening, and we went down to the Club Fortune. I remember going down there one night. So, but no one not many anyway, made connections. It was just sort of a fun thing. We all socialized, I guess, and we needed that.
And when we'd go out to the nightclubs, the cadets were not supposed to drink. So the waitresses would bring in coffee cups and pour the drink in the coffee cups so they could have the drinks.
You were probably underage too.
Yeah, but I think everybody wanted them to feel.
Yes, they wasn't. If they could serve in the war, they could certainly.
Yes.
Be able to drink if they wanted to.
And rationing was big. You know, when she was talking about gas, butter, and shoes, and sugar. Our shoes oftentimes were thin because you couldn't get another pair of shoes. I remember putting cardboard in my shoes.
This country didn't really know what rationing was.
Oh no, England.
And they had the blood drives, and it was patriotic to give blood. So I went and I looked down, and they started taking it out. And that's the last thing I remember, except everybody else went outside, and I just passed out cold in there. But I got my blood out all right. So now I don't watch.
In 1943 and 4, I was working in this building when the cadets came on campus. My job was the secretary to the president's secretary. And it was right down in Moore Hall, in that little window. and I did all the exams for all the professors. And I thought I was so popular because all these cute guys from the Air Force kept coming by to talk to me. You know what it was? I was so dumb I didn't realize what they were after. They were after the exams. But it was great. You know what, now I have a grandson who is terribly interested in the war years, and we sing the songs that I learned from those cadets. Off we go into the wild blue yonder. That's all.
And then the opiate, and then the shoe story. Oh gosh, I can't, because people don't know what it was like.
It's easy. Look at Heather. She's pretty.
Well, instead of going into the waves, I got an offer of a job at an army hospital, and so I thought, well, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. So I majored in psychology, and I worked in the psychiatric section of this army hospital. You know, where men who'd come back from the war were mentally disturbed. And in the summer, while I was in college, I worked at the Office of Price Administration, where they tried to keep prices of items at a level, you know, instead of skyrocketing. Otherwise, prices would be, you know, people would gouge and charge unreasonable amounts for rent and that sort of thing. Then she wanted to tell about after I left school, I needed a pair of shoes because I was getting married, and we had just stamps. We had to have stamps to get shoes, and I didn't have any, and my mother didn't have any. So I called home. She lived in Virginia City, and they still had this, you know, an operator who connected you, you know, rather than automatic and so on. So anyway, I told Mom I needed some shoe stamps, and she said, well, I don't have any. I'll see what I can do. The next day, the operator gave my mother a shoe stamp. She listened in on the conversation. So different then, wasn't it?
Yes, it was very different. But we had to have so many stamps to get sugar, or lard, or whatever.
Meat, butter. Gas, and Katie's not ready.
Well, I think Lanier will be. Esther had a frog. I don't know. I do a man to come.
If Lanier comes.
So we had a few. I remember standing around.
I'm Barbara Mills Hill, and I remember at the H. Hill house, Esther Detweiler had a frog that she had rescued from somewhere and kept it in the little glass bowl that like a kitchen light fixture, and it died, and we had a funeral for it, all of us standing around very sober and serious and all. Yep, after. Then in the winter, when it snowed just a little bit, we'd get the trays out of the kitchen and slide down the hill. The hill in front of the ATO house, which is University Terrace. I don't know where it is now, but that's where it was then.
My Little Margie was filmed here in the 40s during wartime, and all of us gathered in Morrill Hall to become extras because we got, it was about $6.75, I believe, an hour for working as an extra, and that far outweighed anything else I was getting in my other work. One day we were sitting in Morrill Hall waiting to be called if needed as an extra, and Alan Young came in, and he was looking for his muffler. He couldn't find it. He had it in one scene, and the scene was not complete. So he had to have the same muffler on so the scene could be completed. They couldn't have the muffler here, and then as he's talking, the muffler has disappeared. So I helped him find the muffler, and he got the muffler and went back out. and then he was. I dated him while he was working here on the movie. Glenn Langan was in the movie. Jean Crane, who was beautiful, was in the movie, and it was just a very interesting experience. And I've seen it on American Movie Classics, and I'm always the blur that passes in front of the camera as it starts. Everything was out of focus, but it was fun. And actually, he gave me my very first orchid, and orchid corsage. And so I was delighted because our first date was on a Monday night, and that was the Tri-Delt's meeting night. So all the girls were there, but I'd gotten excused from the meeting for another engagement, and he came to the door, and I tell you, I felt like a queen floating down the stairs to go out with the star, and so that was just an interesting experience for me. And that, of course, was very long ago. Well, it must have been 45 or 46, around there. That was, yes. But that's really about all I have to tell, unless you have any questions. He was a gentleman. Pardon?
What movie was it?
It was called My Little Margie. And Alan Young, were you in it?
No, Mrs. Wayland. She was a double for one of the lady who was the leading star.
And that was Jean Crane. So that was quite an experience. But also Alan Young became known in later days as the owner of Mr. Ed the Talking Horse. So then he did become a more well-known name.
That's wonderful.
It was fun.
Now, we can't both talk at the same time anyhow.
Yeah. You want us to start talking? Oh. We were asked to talk about when we lived in the dormitory. Our first year was at Artemisia Hall, and our senior year was at Manzanita Hall. In the 2 years in between, we stayed at the Lambda Chi House because the military took over the dormitories. One of the things we remember about the living at the dormitory was that we had to sign in at night. First of all, we had to sign out if we went out during the evening, and if we didn't get in by 9 o'clock, we were punished. And on weekends, we could come in at 10 o'clock at night. But we had to sign out before we went, where we were going, and then we had to sign in when we got back from whatever activity we were going to. It didn't matter whether it was a basketball game or a dance. We had to sign in and out to go outside. And we had a house mother. Can't remember the house mother at Artemisia. Or Manzanita, and Ethel. Who was our house mother at Lambda Chi? Ethel?
Ethel Dixon Whitlatch.
Ethel Dixon Whitlatch was our house mother at Lambda Chi.
She was a physical education teacher.
Can I give it to you? You want to add anything? Tell about the time you got grounded.
5 minutes late. I don't know how late I was, but I came in late, and she was president of the Manzanita Hall Association. So she had to ground me when I got in late, and I ended up having to do some cleaning around the Manzanita Hall, washing dishes, I think it was, or cleaning the fireplace. Yeah, no, I don't think I cleaned the fireplace, but I think I worked in the kitchen cleaning it, and I don't know, for 2 or 3 weeks I was grounded. I couldn't go out. But
Your Kleenex? Are they crying?
Okay, one of the things that I remember particularly about going to school during the war was that we had no gasoline. We didn't have cars, and so everything was rationed. Things were scarce.
one of the things that we used to do, instead of having silk stockings or nylons, was we would get this particular color of brown and put it on our legs, and then we would draw a perfectly straight line up at the back of our legs, because that's the way they made the stockings in those days, and it was always very important to have the back of your stocking straight. So we cheated on things like that. And it sounds kind of pitiful right now and silly, but that's what we had to do. Also, we walked everywhere. We thought nothing of walking from here down to Idlewild Park and back just in an afternoon after school. We took bowling over in a building that was over on South Virginia, where the Washoe County Library is now. And I had one class that started at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we would be down there by 8 o'clock in the morning from up here, walking down in the wintertime. And we really thought nothing of it. That was just the way we did it. Right, Muriel? And so I also remember going bare-legged in cold weather, and how Dr. Deming over in the chemistry department was very shocked that girls would go around without stockings on. But we thought that wasn't very glamorous unless we could have nylons, and of course those were impossible to get.
Did you shave your legs then?
Oh, yes, or we waxed them when that was a painful ritual that we helped each other with. And our sororities were very important if we belonged to them, and had very close relationships. And of course the cadets were, and the engineers, we thought they were so wonderful, and they thought we were too. And I can remember walking at night from the Pi-Phi house over to the library, which is now the administration building, and they would have to sit on one side. They weren't allowed to fraternize with us during the day, and we would have to sit on the other side. So anyway, we would sort of look at each other and flirt and sort of pass drop notes or whatever, and they'd pick them up. But love will find a way. And so we would always have dates on the weekends, and we had a lot of fun, and yet you never knew. And the boys would write to us after that, and we would get the V-mail, and the V-mail was photographed and sent to us, and it was really smaller than what the original letter was. And it would be, they would cut out, they were censored, they would cut out things that might give the enemy an idea where this person might be, like on a ship. They might be able to tell where that ship would be at sea, or if they were in a bomber squadron or transporting across the ocean, then it might give them a clue of some kind. And so we were all very aware always of the fact that we were being watched, and that it was a very serious war for our survival. Never a question about that in our minds. It wasn't like Vietnam, where a lot of the people thought it was an unjust war and that we didn't support the boys. They had our 100% support. So, thank you.
Tell me when. Hi, I'm Gloria Springer Oberg. In thinking about the war, I think probably one of the things that all of us remember is where we were on that particular Sunday when Pearl Harbor was attacked. And I can remember I was coming back from Sunday school and stopped in the little cafe in Mina, Nevada, and everybody was saying, "This is it." And Roosevelt's speech that inspired us all to join and get in the war. Probably, and we all had relatives. I had a brother who was in the Marine Corps and had lied about his age. So at the age of 16, he joined the Marines. And with every story, of course, in every battle, you were concerned about how they were doing. And we'd get victory letters, like email. In fact, what were they called? Something, it sounded like email. V-mail, maybe? V-mail, yeah. So The thing I'm most grateful for, and the thing that has impressed me and has moved me the most, is the fact that had we not entered the war when we did, that many more people would have been killed in the Holocaust. And to think that had Hitler had his way, how devastating it would have been for the world. The most noble story that I remember from the war was the King of Denmark. When Hitler marched into every country, he insisted that all the Jewish people be rounded up and identified, and then hauled away, of course. And so when he got to Denmark, he said within a certain amount of time or on a certain day, all the Jewish people will wear armbands indicating that with the cross, not the Cross of David, but Star of David. And when that day arrived, the king and all his family came out on the balcony wearing the Stars of David and said, we're either all Jewish or we're all Danish. And consequently, the Jewish people in Denmark were not rounded up because of the king's doing this remarkable thing. It's sad, just sad to think of the devastation that man did out of his own ego. And when I went 2 years ago to visit the Holy Land, one of the most impressive things in the Holy Land was the museum dedicated to victims of the Holocaust. Very moving, very moving. One of the most moving memorials from that is a huge room, a dark room with only little flickers of lights overhead like stars. And you walk through it in the dark with a railing, and it takes you, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes to walk through the whole room in this darkness. And while you're walking, all the names of the children that were killed in the Holocaust are recited. And it takes 2 years to recite all the names of all of these children. So some remarkable things that fortunately we did. I think this is a great idea, having this tea. And I quip that, why aren't we rolling bandages? Whenever we had to get together on campus, we always rolled bandages for the Red Cross. So, yeah, lovely idea, and thank you. Thank you. Did you know in Honolulu, and you go out to it, and you can look down and see the ship, and there's a memorial that's right over the ship, the Arizona.
It's still sunk.
It's sunk. And there's this big tribute to it that's so moving, it's so dramatic. And my brother was fought in the Pacific, and a very, very young man, as I say, enlisted at 16, and he was credited with bringing in one of the largest groups of prisoners, Japanese prisoners. He was on Okinawa, and he went with his dog on a patrol thing, and he went into this cave, and there were the 7 men of the enemy who were drinking and drunken and left their arms up front in the cave, and so he went in and brought in 7 of them, he and his dog, and it was very noble considering this was what I remember as a little kid he and I were scared of the dark in Mina, and to think that you do these noble things, it's just really great. Yeah, so tremendous war for what could have happened had it not been for our going into the war. And just the other day, President Clinton acknowledged a fellow, I think his name is Bowler, who was stripped of all of his privileges. He was a survivor of the Bataan March, and they took away his medals and everything, and he was just reinstated the other day.
Why have they taken them away?
I can't, do you remember the story of why he was?
It's in the newspaper.
Yeah, I think he had
Some technicality.
Yes, some little technicality, and he's fought all these years, 50 years, to try and get the recognition that, and they finally gave it to him.
In the field, and it wasn't.
Yes, it wasn't official or something. And there were so very few who survived the Bataan March, which was another heroic thing just to have been in. I think 10,000 of the people from the Bataan March did not survive it. It was so cruel. So what the war did was to keep some really horrible things from continuing. And we were noble to be in it, and we were proud.